Morning memorial, and I am privileged. I think you'll feel privileged too, that Terry the Legend Rush has agreed to share with us just some things that God has taught him. If you don't know, the legend, though we feel in our hearts, it actually comes from his experience with, if my understanding is correct, with the St. Louis Cardinals Ball Club. That's a name he took on, attending many camps and developing quite an influence there, both with past players and present players. And that is a name that we take on with honor for him. So, Terry, thank you, first of all, just for being willing to talk to us. Really, really appreciate it. We are studying this month, the Holy Spirit, or rather the church makes no earthly sense. And we stole that without you giving us permission, I might add. We stole that from a book you wrote called The Holy Spirit Makes No Earthly Sense. And I just was curious what caused you to want to write that book?
When I was a new Christian and then going to preaching school fairly soon afterwards, we were taught that the Holy Spirit no longer worked among us, that was a thing of the past. And I believed it, and I defended it, and I promoted that. And then one time I was sitting in my office reading my Bible, and I read where it said that he does work in our lives. And I said back to the Bible, that's not true. And then I said to myself, who do you think you just said that to? So there you go.
Yeah. Well, it was a bold move. I can remember I wasn't here when you wrote that book, but I heard about it from my preacher friends, and you took a lot of heat over that book. But it is something that, from my vantage point, it certainly shaped Memorial. It has shaped me, and specifically because once you decide that you're not going to stand against the work of the Holy Spirit works. And I think he works anyway, but he works in our lives when we let him. So I'm curious, thinking about that realization and what God gave you through that. How did that affect, we're talking on Father's Day. How did that affect you as a dad, you and your parenting, realizing the Holy Spirit does work?
Yeah, it's a really key idea, because each of us, being the way that we are, we turn corners here and there and realize, wait, I did that wrong. I didn't do that part right. Mm-hmm. And the Holy Spirit is one of the very natures of him in us, is that he renews us day by day, not year by year, but day by day. And so he says to us, look, let's start that over, and let's give this another opportunity to watch God flow through this idea, move through this idea. And so the reality is that we are, as long-term believers in God, we are in kindergarten every day.
Yes. And
it is so exciting.
That is awesome. That term, we are in kindergarten every day. I remember that from the first week I was at Memorial 20 years ago, and it still speaks to me. It still speaks. That's just one of those things you've left for us that is just beautiful. So in thinking specifically about how that applies to parenting, how were you a different parent? And maybe even think about it this way. I know a lot about how you were raised and the way your dad interacted with you. How did you interact different with your children with the discovery of the Holy Spirit working and renewing you?
Well, that's really a fascinating area there, because the learning of the Holy Spirit taught me about me, that I needed to start over every day. Mm-hmm. And so then by me starting over every day, it also said I needed to start over as being a dad every day. And so while I loved the idea of getting to be a father, I became even more enamored and excited about the idea that, wait a minute, I'm going to learn things today about being a dad that I didn't know yesterday nor last week. And so the Spirit of God is always keeping us trimmed and sharper day by day as we learn of Him.
That's right. That's so good. You taught me early on, when I moved here, my kids were almost 1 and almost 3, and they're now 21 and 23. But you taught me early on to enjoy right now. You would say that, enjoy right now. And when they're teenagers, I'll never forget that you pulled me aside. They were about 7 or 8, 9 years old. And you said, I want you to go ahead and make a decision that you're going to enjoy when they're teenagers. And I thought that was beautiful. How does that dynamic of joy, why is that so important to you?
Oh, I think because unconsciously we tend to go through life missing out on the amazing things going on because we are individually bombarded with troubles. If we don't have troubles currently, we get concerned about ones that are coming around the corner.
Right.
And so they just keep robbing us of the glory and the wonder of right now. And right now is fascinating. And it doesn't mean that we don't ponder and weigh future ideas and events, because that's being responsible as well. But we don't waste right now's awe and wonder by pondering all the things that may go wrong down the road.
Oh, goodness. You've been reading my diary, my friend. Now we're giving me a lot of credit that I would have the discipline to keep a diary, but you get my point. Yeah, I think that I'm not alone in the feeling of, is it okay that I'm not perfect? It's a weird thing because generally we'll say I'm not perfect, as a general defense. But then in the role of being a father, I think the world beats down on us, kind of like what you're talking about, but also what we tell ourselves. What would you say to the dad who's saying, is it okay that I'm not perfect?
I just had to have the message from God that power is perfected in weakness. Because when I saw that and really, really saw that verse, it said to me, wait a minute, you have been trained by various things in your childhood that you were never enough, to all of a sudden going, wait a minute, God, you would use me as I am, and that you will groom me and assist me and lead me. And it just broke open an entirely new possibility and world. So fascinating and amazing.
That's awesome. Now, there was something I remember you taught me. It was about, I think it was your daughter, but experiencing hard things. She had ran into something in, I don't know if it's high school or junior high, and you handled that in a different way. It's that whole idea of the kingdom works in reverse. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, the idea of being responsible parents is that we want to shield, I think in general, we want to shield our children from anything that's painful and hurtful. Of course we do. But something goes on with that then doesn't bless them down the road. And that is that when they become adults, they don't know how to handle stress and strain because we shielded them from all of it. Now, it takes a lot of measuring exactly what it is that we're going to allow and permit them to go through. But we must, I think, help our children learn to endure stress and struggles by helping them walk through the moments of pressures and allowing them to stay there so that they can watch it unfold and even be beneficial in places. Because God is, He is active right in the center of the things that are challenging to us. He's got life going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love you talking to me about we walk with a living God, and we have to take that seriously, because if we don't take it seriously, we'll forget him, and we'll unintentionally just walk with us instead of taking the opportunity of walking with living God. And I love that. I love your emphasis on immediacy, the right now. And I was sitting in a car with you one time. We had just received news that we would not have access to the parking lot during workshop. And we just received news. I don't know if you remember that. So we're sitting in your car and you turned to me and you said, "Don't you just love right now?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And I watched you and you did. You did that. You took hard news. How is it when you think about as a parent experiencing hardship? How do you model that for your kids? What would you share with a parent going through a hard thing in their life and then trying to communicate that to their kids?
Well, I think one of the key things is to communicate to them that you think this is really difficult.
Mm.
It's not to pretend that things aren't rugged and rough, because then they will assume when they hit hard times that, wait, something's wrong with them because you never encountered it.
Right.
I think when we communicate to them, look, I don't know what to do with this. And I just need you to know that I don't know what to do with it, because watch this. We're going to turn a corner one day or one week, and somewhere God is going to let it all be productive. And then together with our children, we can look at that turning point and say, wasn't that amazing? We didn't have anything to do with that. He did it. And that's why we believe him.
Yes. You set them up, and I think you did it for me too. You set us up to watch for God to work. You really set the stage for him. So thinking about your dad, and your dad was a Golden Glove boxer. And I'm wondering, do you think you took on some of the positive traits, like taking the blows and keeping going? And how did that affect how you trained your kids?
Yes, I think that it's really important that we admit that we encounter stress and struggle, we encounter opposition, and that we don't feel like we've got to hide and until that all goes away, but that we capitalize on the strain and the stress at the moment so that we can not only learn for ourselves, but so that we can be able to pass it along to our children to say, look, I know what you mean when you're discouraged. I know what you mean when you're having a rough time. And I don't blame you for it. I want you to know that our living God even works right there, and you're being blessed by him. You're valuable to him. And so just by faith, watch him reveal the things that are a blessing to you, because you're going to see them coming down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm cheating a little bit. I thought that was my last question. I got one more. This reminds me of your early days of baseball camp. And I think there's kind of an assumption, once you meet a person and they're already the legend, you think it was easy for them to get there. Can you talk a little bit about how your faith carried you through those early years of baseball camp?
Well, I was nothing but excited to get to go. The exact reason that I went is because I wanted to share the good news that Jesus was truly bringing into the world's situation. I mean, that is exactly why I wanted to go. And I wanted to go to be with these heroes of mine, to be able to somehow share what it was that he would do. But when I got there, there was zero interest on the spirit side of things from those around me. And so I had to make some adjustments, some huge adjustments, to be able to learn, as Jesus did, to come along and walk alongside of people where they are, instead of making big corrections. Jesus was fascinating that he came alongside of us, being a human being, to say, I've got to experience what it's like being you, so that I can explain to Father what it's like being you. Mm-hmm. And that just reverses the the whole dynamic of getting to be a believer, because it carries amazing potential and possibility of hope.
Do you ever get made fun of?
Everywhere I turned.
For those,
But I made the others feel good.
for those that might not know, Terry may still, but for years carried his card, his business card, was a baseball card filled with quotes from famous Cardinal players that were not complimentary.
No, they were not. They were intentionally insulting in humorous ways.
Yes, yes. Well, I just want you to know, and I will tell you this every time I talk to you. I am so blessed to be one of your kids, and just the way that you've impacted my life. There's not a day that goes by that something you taught me doesn't show up, and that gives me hope for my role as not just a parent of my children, but everyone I have influence. And then as I look around at the men at Memorial, the dads at Memorial, just the way that they impact their world, it is fascinating. Any last comment?
Just that because of the Holy Spirit bearing his fruit through us, one of the great traits is the hope. There is always hope. And so when we are shut down, we think, when we are in delay, or whatever it is that is disrupting our time at the moment, we can be assured that it isn't maybe, it isn't if, it is definitely incredible hope because of the power of the Holy Spirit who is living inside of us and bursting through us with incredible power. And it's just exciting all the time. It is.
It is. Thank you, brother. I really, really appreciate this. On behalf of the congregation, thank you. And happy Father's Day to you.
Hey, friend. Thank you. Thank you much.